So it's not illegal to have this conversation with your doctor. One question that I ask for your listeners, when you talk about it with your doctors, ask them if they know about the endocannabinoid system.
Empowering you organically, delivering content you trust with results you love.
Welcome, beautiful people, to another episode of Empowering You Organically. I'm joined today, as always, by my co-host, Terry Ann Trevenin.
Hey, everyone.
We have our special guest back, John Malanca.
Hi.
Thanks again, John, for coming back. Listen, if you guys don't know who John is, tune into our last episode where we were talking all about cannabis and THC and the medical uses. You can hear John's story. It's a phenomenal episode. There's a lot of misconceptions out there about cannabis, and I just can't encourage you enough to go listen to that episode and then come back and join us for this episode. Today, we're talking about how do you use cannabis for specific ailments, right? Whether that's pain relief, anxiety, sleep, stress, diabetes, all sorts of them. And we're going to talk as well about the differences between recreational use and medical use of cannabis. We're going to talk about different dosages that you can use and some of the different medical speak that's going to be out there as you go and talk to your doctors and things like that. So this is a very specific podcast. I mean, this is for you to really get the how-tos that you need.
And let me just say, too, on our previous episode with John, if you don't understand cannabis and you're wondering, isn't this a controversial topic and you're not educated on it, I encourage you to go back and listen for that reason as well. We really talk about the myths around it, what people understand about it, the history. And so I would highly encourage you, even before listening to this one, go and get educated with our previous episode and then come back and check this one out. It's going to give you a lot of good information going into this as well. Really important.
Absolutely. And that's the reality is it's a bunch of misconceptions. And this is one of the most versatile plants in the world. I mean, it's been used for thousands of years. It's only
They say 5,000 years.
5,000 years.
5,000 years. I didn't want to cut you off.
You're good, John.
I'm excited to go.
You're our guest.
Okay.
So you're welcome to. Let's talk for a second. This was something we didn't get to on that first episode, and we talk about cannabinoids.
And okay, yeah. So you mentioned at the beginning about talking to your doctors, and I think it's really important. It's not illegal. A lot of your followers are probably in illegal states and legal states, so it's not illegal to have this conversation with your doctor. One question I'd have that I ask you for your listeners: when you talk about it with your doctors, ask them if they know about the endocannabinoid system. So the endocannabinoid system, all mammals with a vertebrae have an endocannabinoid system. All mammals, not just human, all mammals have it. And so
which means
if what it's craving is cannabinoids. And what are cannabinoids? From cannabis plant. That's why for 5,000 years plus, and probably even further than that, but I think 5,000 years ago was the first noted documentation or transcript. Is that the word? Transcript that people have actually knew how to write things down. And so before it was just stories. So the body is, we all have, all mammals have a vertebrae are have an endocannabinoid system, and they're craving cannabinoids, which is cannabis. You can also have an endocannabinoid deficiency, which is the root cause to many diseases, which were leading into different types of dis-ease in the body, which is pain, inflammation. Inflammation is huge. Stress. Stress is the number one killer. So I recommend, if anybody has tried cannabis before or has not tried cannabis and they're in pain and they're listening to us right now, take your own self-check. Close your eyes, take a big breath, exhale, and just see where your pain level is on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, and just see where you are. And if you are in a legal state and you have tried cannabis, or you're in an illegal state and you have tried cannabis, just take that. Just see where you are and ingest your cannabis. If you are a user, legally or illegally, don't take a lot. And just take a reassessment of where you are afterwards. Inhale, breathe out, and just see where your pain level is there. Some people can have success with 1 to 2 milligrams. Some people need 100 milligrams. I don't think majority of people need that. I think you can have success at 1 to 2 milligrams. Nothing that you're going to have any psychoactive effect, but it goes into the body. It's incredible. The number one, I guess we use Google a lot, but the number one Google term is for pain. And so back in our podcast one that we did, we spoke about the different with Sacred Plant. We did episodes season 1, which is a 7-part docuseries. Season 2, which was another 7-part docuseries, both with webinars as well. And then we just finished our pain masterclass. So we asked our followers, what do you want to listen to? Our followers are over 190 countries, patients in 190 countries, both medical professionals, government officials, and patients. We're about to start the cancer masterclass. So cannabis is an analgesic. It helps with pain, helps with inflammation, helps with sleep. There's so many. We talked about the different types of uses, and one thing that when I would always speak, I always have I mentioned in podcast 1 about the duct tape that I showed on our screen, and people always ask me, is it like 101 million and one uses like duct tape? And it really is. I don't want to give anybody false hope, but there are so many benefits of this plant. You don't have to be high to use this plant.
Let's talk about that for a second. I think that's a
Great.
really great point. Let's talk about the difference between the medicinal side of it and the recreational side of it.
Gotcha. So in a lot of people's minds, the recreational side is a bunch of kids smoking weed, saggy pants, and getting in trouble.
Yep.
Getting stoned.
It's a gateway drug.
I think
right?
that's a lot of people's perception. Don't even take the medicinal side of it. I think a lot of people just look at it as a recreational use product.
They think
It's
that
not.
it being approved for medical use is just for a bunch of stoners to get it legally.
Yeah, and they just think all of those things you just said. That's a lot of people's perception.
And it was
of
our
this.
perception when we first got into this. I mean, what my wife was, come on, give me a break. That's what her idea was. Give me a break. It's another legal way of people just to get stoned. And then we were thrown into this with my father-in-law, and she was somebody who's never tried cannabis. She was never a drinker. I think she had her first sip of alcohol when she was 33, and we never, glass of wine, every 4 or 5 months is what our alcohol intake was. But for her to see, we were thrown into this, as we mentioned, cancer or any disease doesn't discriminate. We were thrown into this, for our listeners that did not listen to podcast 1, we were thrown into this because my father-in-law was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And I'll just fast forward the story for the people that did hear it. He's still alive today, and it'll be 18 years.
He was given 2 weeks to live.
He was given 2 weeks to live with stage 4 lung cancer metastasized to his brain, and it'll be 8 years this February. So cannabis, we rolled our eyes to that. We also saw the benefits of this plant. And so back to recreational and medical use, there really isn't a difference. Just the laws that, California has been legal since 1996, 22 years. For medical use. This past year, they passed it in law for recreational use, for adults only, 21 and over. I'm gonna get in our industry. I get a lot of backlash on this because I voted no on it. Blows a lot of people's mind. How could you vote no on this for recreational? Because we are so medical that I've seen what it's done in other legal states, and hopefully that will change. But in California, it's been considered the medical state, where Colorado's been the recreational state. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm just saying 99% of the patients that come to us are true medical patients looking for help. I have cancer, I have a disease, I need help with this. What the recreational laws have done in these legal states and now happening in California, once they open the door for recreational use, everybody's saying, I don't need a doctor. I can just go in, I'm 21, just like going to a bar, and I can order myself a drink. I can go into a dispensary like going into a 7-Eleven, and I'll take that. But they need to realize cannabis is not a one-size-fits-all. Age, weight, current health condition, any medications you may be on should be looked at. I truly believe a pharmacist should be involved, because you go into your pharmacy right now, they have a section where you get it, but they also have a section, do you have any questions on this? And they'll ask you, what other medications you're on? There is drug-to-drug interactions. We speak at a lot of neuropathy groups, for diabetic neuropathy groups as well as cancer neuropathy groups. And some of these patients are in so much pain that they're taking 6 oxycodones a day. And then they try cannabis, and they do 2 to 3 milligrams. And there is a study that shows cannabis can intensify a medication by up to 2 or 3 times. So imagine taking 6 oxy a day. I'm perfectly fine. Add 2 milligrams of cannabis, your oxy is doubled, and now you're climbing the wall and say, I'll never do cannabis again, when it really wasn't the cannabis, it was a drug-to-drug interaction. That is why I truly believe that a medical professional is needed, is why, again, I voted no on it, because I've seen what it's done. It's pushed out in other legal states, Colorado, Washington, Oregon. It's pushed out the true medical professional, doctor, because no one's coming to the doctors, and doctors are closing shop and either moving to another state or just saying, they don't need my help to write recommendations or guidance anymore. So
it's everyone just trying to self-medicate.
Self-medicate.
Right? And you know, I guess there's somewhat a place for that. But the reality is most people are not, and maybe I'm wrong here, but most people are not recreationally using cannabis anyway, right? And a lot of people that are likely listening to this are learning for the first time or really understanding cannabis. And maybe they smoked a joint back in high school, or hundreds of joints back in high school, but now they don't, and they're trying to understand the medical use. And just going to the dispensary and grabbing yourself a gram and throwing it in a pipe and smoking it, that's not the way that you use it for medical.
Well, then you have the other side that argues, the recreational user. They say, listen, I have stress, I have anxiety, I'm not on my meds anymore, I'm not drinking alcohol anymore. A lot of people come home from work and have a martini or a glass of wine, you know, and then wake up the next day hungover or something like that. Well, they say, hey, I'm using it for recreational use, but guess what? I'm hanging out at my house. We're not going down the bars fighting. We're not taking any pharmaceuticals. I'm not getting in my car and driving and crashing, getting a DUI, which I don't recommend people to drive and use medical cannabis. But in states that recreational laws have passed, DUI numbers have dropped down. Opioid addiction has dropped down. Opioid overdoses have dropped down. So it's showing, you know, these census and surveys are showing that it does help patients. Why I personally was voting against it, because I've seen other patients in different states, because patients call us at United Patients Group, and we have medical professionals that work with patients not only here in the U.S. but overseas, help give us guidance, dosing formulations, protocols. It's not a one-size-fits-all, but they're also saying, I don't have any more doctors in my area, because the doctors are like, people are self-medicating and they don't need me anymore. If you need help to sleep, go try it. If you're 20 years old, go try it. You know, if you have too much, you're like, you know, like we've all had in our life, you know, being a young kid, and you're like, oh, I won't do that again.
Sure. Well, it's a little different. I mean, I think that we're in the infancy of it becoming mainstream again, right? It went illegal in the 1937, I think, and it's coming back to the mainstream. So, and I'm all for it being 100% legal personally, whether it's recreational, medical, that kind of thing. The challenge here is you don't go to your local grocery store or whatever and you're feeling some pain and you buy some ibuprofen or Advil or Tylenol, and there's no dosage on there, right? You don't just get a bottle of 50 and then you decide, well, I'm just going to take 20 of these because I don't know, right? That's where I think, you know, your hesitation comes on the recreational side, and I agree on that sense, because you're not telling people, okay, well, just go buy some cannabis and you just decide how much you need. Well, I'll tell you right now, you go to your dispensary and you buy, you know, some 10 milligram edibles, and you've never done it before, and you go home and you eat 2 or 3 of those, you're going to be out of your mind.
Great point on the edibles. So your followers that didn't listen for podcast 1, you know, there's so many different delivery methods. Edibles is one. Edibles is, they call them medibles, medicated food, brownies, cupcakes, lollipops, ice cream, drinks. You know, I'm missing, but anything that you can make a food product, they can now are making it popcorn, you know, nuts.
We can make it into a butter. So anything you make with butter, you can.
Totally. The thing with that is talking about direction and dosing. Everyone's different. You know, I'm a lightweight. I can have a glass of wine and sip on that whole glass of wine all night, and that's all I need. 2, I don't feel good. where I have other friends who can drink 2 bottles of wine and go, hey, I'm perfectly fine. That's not how my body works. I'm sensitive to salt and butters and stuff like that. And some patients are sensitive to cannabis. Some people are allergic to cannabis. So cannabis is not for everybody. But back to an edible, the delicious brownie, some the size of a 50-cent piece are 5 milligram dose, and some are 100 milligram dose. You get rid of that wrapper, you don't know what is what, and sometimes it takes minimum 45 minutes for you to feel anything. So imagine eating something, you're like, 45 minutes, nothing. I guess I didn't take enough. They eat again, and guess what? It comes on in an hour. Now you have a double dose in you. And this happens to seniors all the time. It happens to everybody all the time.
It happened to my mom.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom just turned 70 years old. She was living in California a couple years ago. And I won't go too detailed into this, Mom, so you don't get mad at me. Yeah. But she was having some pain. She was using some pain medication, wanted to get off of that. Had a neighbor that said, well, you ought to try some edibles, that this will help you. And so she ate, a cookie or a brownie or something, and 20, 30 minutes later, didn't feel anything, ate another one. And I think 2 hours later, she'd had 2 or 3. And I think her whole night was totally crazy.
Shaking.
And after that, it's like, I'm not touching that again. And the neighbor was like, oh my gosh, you ate all that. And it's because she did. If she would have gone and saw a doctor and just said, hey, help educate me. What do I need? Where should I start? Right. And it's like, well, hey, maybe you shouldn't even start with a cookie to begin with, right? Why don't you try a little tincture or try a little something here? And let's get and I want to get into this for a second. Like, let's get the right ratio of CBD to THC so that there is no psychoactive response. Because right now we're talking a lot about this, and there's this, a lot of people think there's a psychoactive response, and there doesn't have to be. That only happens when you take a large dose.
Yeah, and you don't need to be high to have success with cannabis.
Right.
You don't need to have, and CBD, which is making a lot of headway in the news right now. I think the media has confused a lot of people thinking CBD is the medical portion of the cannabis plant, the good portion of the plant, THC is the bad. And so THC, CBD, these are just different types of cannabinoids in the cannabis plant. Currently there are 113 different cannabinoids that have been discovered, and more are being discovered each and every day. Some help with sleep, some help with inflammation, some help with anxiety, nausea, cancer fighters, seizures. You hear a lot of patients. CBD made it to the mainstream because of children with seizures. Not wanting the kids to get high. Brain development. I'm not a big fan of kids, and you don't have to smoke it. They're taking oils under the tongue. They're taking droppers under the tongue. They're taking patches, transdermal patches for these patients. There's so many success stories. One of my best friends, his family was his child was Cash Hyde. I know your dog is named Cash, but they're out of Colorado, out of Montana, and Cash was the pioneer. Literally the pioneer. You Google medical cannabis in children, nothing came up before Cash. But it wasn't mainstream enough that, Today's Show, Good Morning America, Dr. Oz, Anderson Cooper, they would contact him and saying, can we get you on? He'd, yeah, we'll get back to you. And then call him back a couple days, we can't bring it, it's too controversial enough. Nowadays, hiccup, child has hiccups, and they're using cannabis, let's put them on the Today Show. Right. And so Cash was the first legal medical cannabis patient and youngest legal medical cannabis patient in the United States out of Montana. He had a rare brain tumor. His mom, Callie, is a delivery nurse. And so he was in the hospital. He was on chemo radiation. He was on a 49-day coma, blown up like a Pillsbury Doughboy on the chemo cocktails they're on. When he was going to the bathroom, his insides were shedding like a snake. That's what it was doing. The chemo was doing. And so Mike, the dad, went in there and he's like, they've said, pull him. He's going to be a vegetable. He'll never make it. Pull the cords. And Mike said, no way. So he told his wife, I want to give him cannabis. And they said, are you out of your mind? And they said, look at him. He's 2 years old. Look at him. And if you don't let me do it, I'll steal him out of the hospital and I'll go up the mountains and I'll treat my own son.
I have a 2-year-old daughter. And so you tell me that story and somebody's like, no, you can't do that. And she's already gone through chemo.
Well, and talking about what state he was in just makes you sick. And it's that we talked about previously, you get to the point where it's like, there's nothing you wouldn't do. Yeah. Especially when you see your child like that.
So he started putting cannabis oil in Cashie's tube. and within hours.
I'm sure I've seen this video.
And I highlighted him in the Sacred Plant,
Okay.
to share the story. And so Cash wakes up and he wanted a cheese sandwich, and they said, oh, I'll be darned. He goes, if I knew my son was hungry, I know that he has and he was in a coma for 40 something days. So he started eating, the whole family's crying, and every night when the doctors would leave, he put cannabis oil into Cash's tube. He's 2. His pain medication went down to 0. His inflammation went down to a normal 2-year-old kid. And he walked out of there ringing the bell, the cancer bell. And they thought, look what we did. All this stuff worked. And so Mike was living, they were from Montana, but they were going back and forth to Utah. And so Utah at that time was an illegal state. And so he said, we can't share. And everyone's like, you have to share the story. And so Mike finally, they got back home and he shared the story. 3 months later, they went back in for check-in and the brain tumor came back and they said, I'll be darned, let's do this again. And they started juicing the cannabis plant, which is THC-A, which we can go into in a bit. But they put it back into his feeding tube and the tumor disappeared again. So they said, oh my gosh, we have to do this on a regular basis as a wellness. So again, you can take this as a wellness, preventative medicine, just like you would take any of your nutrients, just as a wellness dose, like you take vitamin,
any kind of supplement. Yeah.
The laws changed in Montana. So the laws were passed as legal, then the laws changed as illegal. And at 4.5, Kashi, November 14th, 2012, Kashi was like, no more pokes, the exact words. He was just tired of getting poked and prodded. And his last night on earth was at our place in Montana. And, but it's been tough, seeing death, especially in a child, you having a 2-year-old. But Kashi was the leader of people saying, oh my goodness, you can give this to children and have success. So I want people to, so they've started a foundation called the Hyde Foundation for pediatric cancer. So you can take a look at that. They were one of the main families in the Sacred Plant. I know we got off track here.
And I think that's a great segue. That's one of the places where people have a misunderstanding of where it can be used and how it's being used. And we wanted to talk a little bit today about, and that's an incredible story. And I know you have a lot of stories like that. We wanted to talk about some of the uses for it. And one of the things I want to talk about very first, you mentioned it in Cash's story, is inflammation. Yeah. And inflammation is our body's way of telling us something's wrong. Yeah. And oftentimes it's the beginning phases of knowing there's something else going on or warning you that you need to correct. So talk about cannabis and inflammation.
So one cannabinoid is THC-A. And the A is for acid, the acid form. So just like you would juice wheatgrass, you can juice a cannabis plant. Before it's heated, it's non-psychoactive. So you can juice it. If you have a cannabis plant, not too many people have a cornfield of cannabis plants, but there's a famous doctor up in Northern California who brought this to the public, and his name's Dr. William Courtney. His wife, Kristen, had a major autoimmune disease, and they said, you're toast. You can never have children, and you probably won't be on this earth for much longer. Anyway, he is a major cannabis activist and a doctor, and he said, no, juicing the cannabis plant, non-psychoactive. So she was juicing it, putting in blenders and doing everything else like that. There's a great story. So if you, again, always throw back to Google. But she's alive. They have children now. And so they were the ones that brought juicing the medical cannabis to the forefront. So that's great for inflammation. Great for inflammation, which is a lot of cases the root of disease and dis-ease in your body. And so there are now a lot of companies that make THC-A tinctures infused in coconut oil, MCT oil, grapeseed oil. The one thing about this, and I chuckle, is because a lot of women will keep it in their purse, or I can share a story we had on a nightstand, but if it heats up, it will convert to THC. So a lot of patients will have it in their purse. You leave anything in your car, even a bottle of water in your car, like, oh, great, and come back, it will convert. And so this one day, we had it on our nightstand at home, and new bottle, and I would take it in the morning, and I'd go to work. Next day, take it in the morning, go to work. And this one day I get to work, and I'm feeling something. And so I go into my office, and I say, Corinne, that bottle, what was it? She goes, THC-A, non-psych. I said, I'm feeling something right now. Well, I didn't realize we would leave in the morning where it was dark, and we'd come home, and it was dark, and the sunlight is moving across the room by the bedside stand, and it was in the sunlight, and it converted to THC. So I think if you are going to have medicine, we don't have any kids around, but I advise everybody, if you are going to have this medicine around, keep it in your refrigerator, in a cool place, in a dark place, away from kids, away from pets, away from others that come into your home.
Like you would any other
any
medicine.
medication.
I mean, that's the thing here, and that's what I'm hoping this podcast and hundreds of other podcasts and interviews and your docuseries with the Sacred Plant does, is it educates it. This is medicine. It's a serious medicine. It's not high schoolers, using it as a gateway drug to get high. This is a real medicine that is healing hundreds of thousands of people around the world. I mean, it's truly healing people.
Research, if you don't want to watch, our series at the Sacred Plant, you can go to my website, UnitedPatientsGroup.com, go online, research the endocannabinoid system, talk to your doctor about the endocannabinoid system, ask them if they've studied this in medical school. Unfortunately, they don't talk about this in medical school.
It's not surprising, is it?
Yeah, it really isn't.
No.
And so when we do our seminar, our conferences, we have partnered. We are the first cannabis company that partnered with a California State University. We did a day of education for that. We're the first cannabis company that's partnered with education with pharmacy organizations. I think this, like it or not, it's coming. This type of medicine, just like chiropractic. I have chiropractors in my family. I'm a big fan of chiropractic. I'm a big fan of health. But chiropractors back in the 60s and earlier, even in the 70s, were quacks. Doesn't work.
Well, prior to that, it's what everybody practiced.
Yeah.
And then it went through a period when mainstream pharma and medical is like, oh, that's all quackery, right? The same thing has happened to cannabis.
It has.
Right? And now most of us know, we go to a chiropractor, we go get adjusted, take a big deep breath again, feel good again, get your stuff realigned.
Yeah.
It's going to be the same thing with cannabis.
They're running a business and all of these natural ways that you can do it. It's so much cheaper, and preventative medicine
prevents profits.
It prevents profits. And so it's not surprising. This is such an important aspect of our body, but no one is being trained on it.
Yeah, and I don't, and slowly but surely people are becoming trained on it.
Yes.
A lot of universities now are talking about and doing it. I think even Harvard has done some conferences. We do our conferences. I don't want anybody to think this is the golden pill and plant, like, as I mentioned in the podcast we did a while back. It doesn't work for everybody.
But people should be aware of their options.
They should be aware of their
and they
options.
should be educated
That's
on everything that's out there.
important
I mean, that's the reason we do this podcast, is people don't have all the information, but they should. So you can make an informed decision.
And if you choose to use it, great. If you choose not to, that's great too. This is your body. But to not have the information is where we're failed as a society.
So we've talked a lot about cancer and how people can use it for cancer, not only the first episode, but now this episode. And there's a few things I want to touch on. One of the issues that this can really help with is sleep. So let's talk about sleeping cannabis.
So sleep alone is the root for a lot of disease. A lot of fibromyalgia patients, it's a domino effect. You work on your sleep, it will help with pain. A lot of doctors we work with say, that's the first thing they say, how is your sleep for fibromyalgia patients? What's your sleep like? Let's work on your sleep, and it will be, like I said, a domino effect on what
sleep is so important.
Sleep is
We've
very
talked
important.
a lot about that, and
And,
just how critical it is.
It really is. And so a lot of patients come to us and say, I have anxiety, I have depression, I have stress. And the first thing I ask, how's your sleep? Look at your sleep first and see if everything else. Maybe how many times have we lost sleep and the next day your anxiety's up, your stress is up, and your mind's not working at its full capacity, and so sleep. So that's another, earlier we talked about one of the number one uses that people come to us with is pain. But I think sleep is a big thing as well. When Corinne was battling cancer, we tried to get her to sleep as well, just so your body can heal. So cannabis, I just recently did something with MD Anderson, and they said less than 6 hours and more than 9 hours of sleep is bad. And so I think the sweet spot is of course, 6, 7, 8 hours. I don't always get that. I don't know about you, but
I wish.
But a lot of patients use cannabis for that, right about an hour before bed. One, so if they have a psychoactive effect that they're not wanting, they can sleep through that. But two, it just helps them sleep. And when they wake up, they're not groggy. They're not feeling like melatonin. I used to use melatonin, and you have some crazy dreams on melatonin. Now I use L-tryptophan. Like we have in. Do you guys sell that product?
We don't.
No, but I use that. I think it's 500 milligram, natural. But I wake up perfectly fine. And a lot of patients use cannabis for the same thing, where they can take it, they fall asleep naturally, they wake up, and they're not groggy. A lot of pain patients will use it before sleeping. Some will take an edible. We talked about edibles, but they'll do that, and sometimes they wake up in the middle of the night. We recently just did a thing on sleep and pain with our pain masterclass. Having the right mattress is important. Not having caffeine after a certain amount of time, not watching TV, and having the blue light.
Yep.
I'm guilty of the blue light. I like having noise, but I like falling asleep with the TV on and
TVs, phones, all of that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that definitely affect sleep. How does cannabis affect like your REM sleep? I mean,
so as I mentioned earlier, you have indica, sativa, and the different hybrids. I'll just go start with the three basic there. So indica is one of the varieties of different. It's a variety of cannabis. Just like you have red, white, and blush rosé wines, the same thing. And I always use that because I think people can understand why about different varieties in cannabis, just like you can with wines. But so you have indica, which is a variety, a certain type of a plant that helps with sleep, body pain. A lot of patients are in pain, but it helps with sleep. Indica, they remember when you're a kid and you have your left and right hand. Oh, what's your left hand? Oh, it's the L for left. So indica, a lot of people, to make it easy, indica in the couch, meaning I'm just relaxed and I'm going to fall asleep. And so a lot of people use that at nighttime for sleep. Sativa, which is more of an upbeat daytime use. And so people use that in the daytime. They can be active. You'll do that, and then you have the hybrid. So for sleep, what I would recommend, what we see is people using indica for nighttime dosing, more of a relaxation sedative, if you want to say, but no side effects. There's not one reported death of medical cannabis. You can't say the same for alcohol. You can't say the same for opioids.
Definitely can't say for opioids.
And
Or any pharmaceutical
for
that's
any
out there.
you know.
So let's talk for a second, because as people go and they talk to their doctors, I mean, here's the challenge is they're going to talk to a doctor and the doctor's not going to know. And so the person can say, well, my doctor doesn't know enough about it, so it must not be good. How can we educate our audience? Like, let's give them some things to understand. So when they do talk to a doctor, they can find out if that doctor really knows what they're talking about or not. And let's talk for the first one. Let's talk about ratios.
Yeah.
Because you've mentioned that before outside of the podcast, and I want to make sure that our audience knows that.
So ratios are, THC to CBD ratio or CBD to THC ratio. A lot of companies, I know now, probably a lot of your listeners have seen hemp CBD, and so that's a CBD dominant. They can have 0.03 THC in there, not enough for you to even feel anything. But there are a lot of companies in legal states in California, I'll use that example, where before 8 years ago when we got involved with this, you would see all the products would have a 4-to-1 ratio, a 2-to-1 ratio. And the first number was always THC to CBD. Now, a lot of these companies have said, you hear a 2-to-1 ratio, 4-to-1 ratio, 8-to-1 ratio, 16-to-1 ratio is CBD to THC. So for our listeners here, always ask what that first number is. Don't be afraid to ask that question. What is that first number? We're
You're good. That's exactly what we want to know. So,
so how important ratios are. So just because my father-in-law had stage 4 lung cancer metastasized to his brain, his ratio is 4 parts THC, 1 part CBD. Cannabis is not a one-size-fits-all. Other seniors, 77 at the time, I've seen with lung to brain cancer, I've seen them have success with a 1-to-1 ratio, which is 50-50, THC to CBD or CBD to THC. There's one company in the world, which you're hearing now, it's a pharmaceutical company called GW Pharmaceuticals, which makes a cannabis non-synthetic. So there is synthetic THC out there, which is called Marinol. It's the only health benefit there for cancer patients is that it helps with nausea and some pain, but it is synthetic cannabis, and it has side effects.
So we've talked a lot
about
synthetic, not that specifically, but synthetic supplements versus whole food supplements, right? There's a big difference when you go to your store and you buy just some cheap synthetic and how well your body can actually process it and use it and the side effects versus just using a whole food, which would be the same thing as getting just a real cannabis
product. And I call that whole plant medicine.
Exactly.
Well, and let me ask a question on that because I've been thinking about that for the last few minutes. We talk to people about being educated on how your supplements are manufactured, the source of the ingredients. There's not a lot of companies out there who care a lot about what they're doing. They're just caring about what they're making off of the product. How do people who are interested in cannabis do their homework and their research on reputable companies that are creating clean, quality cannabis that they can use? What do they look for?
So first off, if you live in a legal state, or you're traveling to, as we talked about, cannabis refugees, and before you actually uproot your family and yourself and your lives and your jobs and your doctors and everything and go to a legal state, to move to a legal state, and if you're in a legal state like Texas and you want to see if this even works, my advice before you move or break the law and have it illegally sent in here, go to a legal state, obtain it, from a legal, reputable location, ask for test results. Test results should be mandatory. They aren't in all states, but they are going that route. You are putting this plant and this medicine into your body, so you should know what you're putting into your body. So you're not responsible for getting the test results. The people you're purchasing your medicine from are dispensaries or other almost like compound pharmacists. I use that term loosely, but there's some great companies in this industry that test their products. They test for mold, pesticides, fecal matter, making sure the ratios are the same. There's some great companies that will test the product before in its flower form, and then when they're making it into the medicine, they test it again to make sure the formulation stayed the same. There are a lot of hemp companies. Again, I'm still on the fence with hemp. So be careful because a lot of the hemp CBD companies are manufacturing and producing this stuff in China and other Canada and Europe.
And let's clarify for the audience: the hemp is the male version of the cannabis plant, correct? And cannabis is the female version, which gets the flower. Or am I wrong on that?
Yes and no. Yeah, you're gonna. I'm not a big hemp expert, and I think you can have both in the hemp plant. And I could be completely wrong. So if anybody's out there wants to educate me, I learn every day. So I'm not telling you that I know everything and that's it. So, but there's different regulations in different countries. What we're finding so hemp in the back day was always called ditchweed or mopweed. And the reason it got that name is if there was a toxic spill, which happened in Nevada numerous times with nuclear waste way back when, they would grow hemp. It would suck up the toxins in the ground. They do a couple of rounds of that, and then they go, and next thing you know, the dirt's clean, and they're farming on it. They're building homes. They're building schools and playgrounds. So hemp in history has been known as mopweed. It will also suck up a lot of metals and pesticides and other different toxins in the earth. Not saying anything bad about China hemp, but they're finding that there are pesticides and metals showing up.
Simply from being in the soil and
in the soil,
right?
And so, if you are going to go and you're stuck in an illegal state, and your only option is a hemp product, I would go with a U.S. based, U.S. grown hemp product. But I'd ask that company to see the test results. If you're in a legal state, the same thing, using finding a THC product, cannabis product, and you want to see the test results, ask them to see test results. If they don't have them, and you're getting it at a dispensary, contact the manufacturer. I want to see the test results. If they don't have them, go to another product. There are a million other products out there, just like your supplements products. But you want to find the company that has tested the product. Make sure that it's a recent test. Don't use something that's been around. I have something from January 2017. Okay, what have you guys been doing? Has it been
it should be tested regularly. I mean, we have to test our products regularly because you have to make sure that those ingredients are still clean. Every time you go through a new, a batch of products, then you need to know that that's still clean.
Read the label. We do a seal of approval for top companies, top organizations, top products in the industry, top doctors, top dispensaries.
Who's we?
Sorry, our company, United Patients Group. And so
is it UnitedPatientsGroup.com?
Excuse me, UnitedPatientsGroup.com.
Perfect.
We don't sell products, but we're patient advocates. We have medical professionals on staff that do consultations, not only here in the U.S., but overseas via phone or video. We don't sell products, so we don't have any ulterior motive to say, oh, you need this, by the way.
Go buy this one, right?
We don't
just
do
a place people can go for
So this
help
is a place that can come. We can
guidance.
do phone or video guidance.
Awesome.
And your own doctor we always invite a family member, which we do recommend. And if your doctor's open to it or not, please invite them in. So we have a lot of doctors say, I need to learn. I want to know what's going on. And I think everyone's on the same page because this is their patient. So why not be on the same page of conventional medicine with alternative medicine? All of our medical professionals come from a conventional medicine background. Who specialize in cannabinoid therapeutics. And so with that, talking about the formulation and doses and ratio, it's not a one-size-fits-all. You have to look at age. You have to look at the weight of the patient. My father-in-law, who is in wasting syndrome, if we would have given him the gram amount that we talked about, he would not be here today. He would not be here today. He had a heart arrhythmia, so we could not give him a sativa strain because it would speed up his heartbeat. So you have to fine tune. Hopefully one day it'll be like, cancer. Hopefully one day, here you have this, take this. You have this, take that. So it's not like that. You are finding the sweet spot. So back to age, weight, current health condition. What are you battling? Each cancer is different, treated differently. Breast cancers, they have so many different types of breast cancers. Some breast cancers need a higher CBD ratio over a higher THC.
Well, you talked
ratio.
about people being on other medication and then adding this into and being careful with that. So I think there's a lot that goes into it. You have to be really careful.
It is medicine.
Yeah.
So have this talk with your doctor. Have this talk with the doctor if he or she has even research into the cannabinoid system. And cannabinoids, and so we've talked about the docuseries The Sacred Plant that I host. It's great hearing patients saying, I was in my doctor's office and they have your docuseries on a loop. Or I have doctors, we speak at international oncology conferences every year, and they say, you know what, we have your docuseries on a loop in our office.
Yeah, people are just becoming more aware. I mean, this has been so insightful for me, and I have a lot of knowledge and background behind this just because of what we've been through and gaining knowledge through content. But I think this is going to be very informative for people. But I think this is another thing where it's coming back to the forefront of people's minds. It's no longer just going to be a controversial topic. It's going to be a well-known topic, and people are going to be talking about it in a way that this can help you. But you have to be careful. Just like all things, too much of anything can be detrimental.
Too much water can be detrimental.
Absolutely. And so, but the great thing about this and what, I'm walking away with is, this is meant to be a part of us. The cannabinoid receptors we talk about, there's so many issues that this helps with: seizures, sleep, anxiety, stress, cancer, diabetes, autoimmune disease, pain, inflammation. The list goes on and on and on. And it's just all about that education. What works for you? What doesn't work for you? And this is something people need to be educated on. And there's resources out there to learn more. The Sacred Plant is one of them. You know, you talking about the advocacy and the guidance that people can gain from what you've been doing. And this is something people need to listen into, something they need to get educated on.
You don't have to be sick to use medical cannabis. You can use it as prevention. You can use it as a wellness.
Great point.
It's great for inflammation. It's great for sleep, which are the root cause for a lot of other disease. You know, don't wait until you're terminal. Don't wait before, you know, you get educated, because I can't tell you how many patients we've had over the years that said, you know, we saw the Hyde story, and now my child, without even knowing, is going through this. And this allowed us to take the next step. Watching the Sacred Plant, I was so on the fence. I was so anti-cannabis until we saw your docuseries on the benefits and the science behind all this. And now I'm a major advocate. I've changed my whole life on this. You know, my wife and I, cannabis was not our lifestyle. We were thrown into this because my father-in-law was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, metastasized to his brain. He was not eating. We did not know the medical benefits then, but we came across a study that showed 40% of cancer patients pass a malnutrition before cancer takes over. And so that's where we were. And so we asked his oncologist about cannabis for appetite stimulation, not even knowing the true medical benefits. And after we researched and his appetite, he started eating 24 hours later, you know, and he continued to eat, got his energy back, his complexion came back, his mood came back, his pain started to diminish. And next thing you know, he's walking, shuffling, I should say, around the house. And we said, whoa. He's like, well, something is working. And we thought, great, he'll pass peacefully. He made it through a week. You know, our doctor gave us 2 weeks. 2 weeks came. Then 6 months came is when hospice fired him. And they'd come over and just play cards. And it was kind of a joke, like, well, we're playing gin rummy, you know. And they finally said, Stan, I think we're going to have to fire you. And we laugh about the term fire, he got fired from hospice, but that's basically what it is. It's like,
which, how many times do you hear that story? You don't.
It doesn't.
You don't.
It doesn't, you know? And so
to wrap things up here, I mean, I think the key here is do your research, get educated. You can watch John's docuseries, thesacredplant.com. You can go to his website as well, unitedpatientsgroup.com. Go to Google and start searching it. Listen, cannabis is not a dirty word. It's not an illegal word, right? You can search cannabis on Google and you're not going to have, you know, the alphabet boys knocking on your door 20 minutes later. You can go search it, get educated, understand all of the benefits of cannabis, and understand all of the benefits, all of the uses, and get very educated, because there's too much misinformation out there. And I even encourage you, when you hear other people putting out misinformation, challenge them on what do they know, what research have they done, or are they just repeating something that they've heard for the last 30 years because that's what somebody's, you know, said about cannabis.
It's not illegal to ask your doctor about cannabis.
And I love that.
And ask your doctor about the endocannabinoid system. Do they know about the endocannabinoid system? And if not, you know, do a printout off the line and say, here, I'd like you to read this. You know, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of good information, a lot of bad information on any topic. But do your research. You know,
talk to a doctor. Go talk. This is medical use. I mean, yes, you can self-medicate if it's something simple, like maybe I want to sleep a little bit better or something like that. You can go try it, right? Why not? But
do your
really,
research behind that too,
do
though.
your research.
I think you have to have your information right as well.
Exactly. Go talk to a doctor and figure out exactly what you need and try it out. And try out the different ratios. Try out different dosages.
And back to you were saying self-medicate. You know, be careful with that. I'm not one to say, you know, titrate off your medicine, go cold turkey, because a lot of patients have been taking a sleep aid for years, over the counter as well as prescription. So it's important to meet with someone who knows about titrating off medications, whatever route you go. If it's you know, you want to get off your medication and you want to go cold turkey, I think talk to your doctor about that anyway. If you want to incorporate medical cannabis into titrating off your medications, talk to a doctor who knows medical cannabis.
Well, and you said, you know, a few years ago and beyond, people weren't really educating on this in the medical field, but now it's becoming more common. And so you're going to be able to find a doctor out there who can talk to you about this. Search until you find that. Find someone who will.
If your current doctor doesn't know, go find one that does.
Absolutely.
Or ask him if he or she can recommend somebody that they might think may know, because I think all doctors know, okay, I know Mr. Jones down there is a little more open to alternative medicine than I am. I bet you he or she would know about that. You were mentioning about how the topic before, a lot of doctors didn't talk about it. So Corinne and I would do a lot of medical conferences, and we were the only cannabis company that they would invite. And we'd do trade show booths, and we did this at pharmaceutical or pharmacy, I should say, not pharmaceutical, pharmacy conventions. In the first couple of years, people would walk by our booth like, I'm not looking, I'm not looking. You know, you'd have one or two stragglers. That
so taboo.
And now our booth is swarmed. What information can you give us? You know, talk about it and help us educate. Now they're saying, can you do a conference with us? And so that's why all of our conferences are approved for CME by the AMA, giving continuing medical education credits. Doctors and medical professionals every year have to get a certain amount of credits. Why not get it on something that their patients are starting to ask about right now? Yeah. So
thousands of years it's been around, and it's gaining movement again. Yeah. It's awesome.
Excellent. I'm going to plug one more time just so that people get it. You can go to thesacredplant.com, unitedpatientsgroup.com. You can also go to empoweringyouorganically.com to get the transcripts, the show notes, cliff notes, the links to everything that we've talked about here. And you can watch us on video. You can download the audios. So however you want to enjoy these podcasts. Thank you so much, John, for joining us.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry Ann. Thank you, everybody who's listening on the airways. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.